I can't please everybody. And especially as a creator, if you try to please everybody, you're actually going to please nobody. It just means you're playing middle ground and you don't have something to stand on. And you're just trying to lightly touch these topics that might be controversial versus like taking a stand, believing in something, saying that you believe in it, knowing that other people on the other end might not like you for that. But there's people on this end who will like you even more because of it.
Welcome back to another episode of Good Work. I'm your host, Barrett Brooks, and on this show, I interview world-class people about why your work matters and how your work can help you become the person and the leader that you are made to be. My goal is to do the research necessary to ask questions my guests have never been asked so that they can tell their stories in a way they've never been told on any other show. For you as a listener, I hope that these stories and the way that we tell them will inspire you to find work that matters to you and to make a positive impact on your family, your community, and the world at large. My guest today is Pat Flynn. If you've never heard of Pat, although I suspect you might have, he is an absolute legend and an OG in the creator economy. Pat is the founder of Smart Passive Income, which was the company that he started after he got laid off as an architect back in 2008 in the recession. And over the last 16 years now, since he started that company, he has done niche project and side project after project to learn real principles that actually work on the modern internet and then teach them to all of the entrepreneurs who follow him at Smart Passive Income. And if you hear that name the first time, Smart Passive Income, you might think like, oh, that sounds smarmy, or like, I don't want to listen to that. But I cannot tell you enough that Pat is one of the most legit, kind, and respectful people you will ever meet on the internet. We talk about everything in this episode, from his journey to being laid off to building an online empire. We talk about his principles for leadership that he's built his company and his teams on. We talk about how he turned his hobby with his kids of Pokémon cards, which I share with him with my kids too, into a 1 million subscriber YouTube channel called Deep Pocket Monster. We talk about his hobbies outside of work, like fishing, spending time with family and fatherhood, and how all of this combines to build a career and a business and projects that keep him motivated and rejuvenated to continue delivering value that allows people to learn from his journey and apply it to their own lives and careers. I think there's something for everyone here, but I especially think entrepreneurs and online creators are going to love this episode. It's personal, it's deep, and as always, there's principles you can take away and apply to your life and career. So here's my episode with Pat Flynn. Let's get to it. Pat Flynn, welcome to the show.
What's up, Barrett Brooks? How are you, man?
So good. Good to have you here. I'm excited to dive in with you. There's so much we could cover. And it just seemed like the obvious starting point to ask you how you got into kayak bass fishing tournaments and why it was that you had to try to be Rookie of the Year when you did.
Because I try to be the best at everything I do. And that's more for me than anybody else. It's just, I've always had that drive to want to figure out how to optimize everything, right? And I just have fun gamifying it. That's what I love about fishing, right? It's like trying to figure out those little things, from the way the bait is retrieved to the water temperature to there's like 1,000 factors involved with whether or not a fish is going to bite. And you can have the perfect cast and still get nothing. But you keep going. You keep casting out there and trying again. I mean, you know this. I mean, your last name is Brooks. It's like you're meant to fish. And for me, it's just so much fun to see what happens next, right? And I think for me, if I were to stop, that would be the worst thing. Even if I keep going and I fail, that's better than not trying or not doing anything at all. So that's why I love fishing so much, because you can get a lot of little micro moments of trying, little, every cast you can 1% improve that and see if you can do better the next time. And then what happens is ideally you find a pattern and you find something that works. Oh my gosh, they really love when I pause that jerkbait motion. I'm going to do that every time now. And then you get hit every time. You're like, I just unlocked it. And everybody else on the lake doesn't know that I found this out. So because they're not next to me, I can't tell them, and I'm here for me. So I'm just gonna have a good time.
I love it. Did you end up Rookie of the Year?
No, not even close.
Okay. But you had the goal nonetheless. One of the most interesting things for me to go back and listen to, I went back and listened to a bunch of old stuff from 2012, 2013 interviews that you did back then.
Oh, cringeworthy.
And even back then, you made this joke on one of them where you said, and hopefully 10 or 15 years from now, I'll just be able to like go fish all the time and hang out with my kids. And it was such a prescient and funny moment because I know you grew up fishing and now here you are back in your fishing era and it's actually come true. What brought that back for you right now? Like what made that the hobby you wanted to pursue and kind of make a priority for yourself? And what do you get out of it?
So during the pandemic, when everybody was locked in and we couldn't go anywhere, I was missing nature. I hadn't gone out, even though I could hike and stuff. I'm not much of a hiker, but I do love to go fishing. I love water. Water's like, I'm like, Moana, basically. She calls me. But I had gone to when everybody was able to kind of go outside and explore again. I went to a lake nearby that I used to fish when I was a kid, just for fun. I needed, like, life was getting stressful. I was having some issues with my event and having it delayed 2 years in a row. And it was just like, I was going to spend $50,000 on hotels that, we had signed a contract for. There was a lot of stuff happening in life. And so I went to this lake and I went early before everybody got up because I wanted to see the sunrise. And I did. And it was majestic. It was gorgeous. And I pulled out my phone and I was like, I got to capture this moment and share it. And in that moment, I caught myself. I was like, why was my initial impulse to take myself away from this moment and then like see it behind a screen and not fully enjoy it, but rather want to share it? And on one hand, cool, like I want to share these moments with people, and I do. But on the other hand, it was like I was there for me, and yet I'm already pushing it off to other people. Why can't I just do this for me? So I put the phone away and I just sat there and I just like enjoyed hearing the water and the leaves rustle and the sun come up. And then I left and I was like, I need to get back on the water again. This was an amazing escape. If I could get literally on the water on a boat, I think that'd be even cooler. And so I started doing that. And one thing led to another. I fish as much as I can now. A buddy of mine, Rick Mulready, who lives near me, we go fishing together now. There's even a lake that I discovered here in San Diego called Lake Barrett, which has the only lake with the northern species of largemouth bass, which are more aggressive. So you can go on the water and have, 50 plus fish per day come in and you put them back and it's all barbless and stuff. And it's not about keeping the fish or eating them or nothing. It's just about getting away and getting back into nature and escaping the day-to-day and escaping the connectivity online and connecting with joy in nature again. I've gotten obsessed and I love it.
I love that you've gotten obsessed.
Yes, it's great. And we need to go fishing together at some point. And if we do that, let's still be friends after, because I know we're going to compete for who gets the biggest fish. I know how you are. But number two, my biggest struggle now is not creating a YouTube channel about it, because I want to share all these things I'm learning and I want to capture those moments and package them into videos that people enjoy. I've already done that with other stuff that I've discovered recently. I think I'm telling myself, no, Pat, no YouTube channel. That's not to say I haven't captured footage just in case I wanted to do a YouTube channel one day. I have done that. But again, I'm not going to do a YouTube channel. If any of you see a Pat Flynn fishing channel, tell me to stop, because then I'm doing it for the wrong reasons.
It is an urge I have constantly. So I don't remember if I've talked about this on the show, but 4 years ago, I think, 3 years ago, I started hosting an annual fishing trip, a fly fishing trip. It's 3 days, 2 nights, camping, guided. We raft down the Deschutes River, one of the most iconic fly fishing rivers in the world, and camp for a couple nights and fish all day. And there's 8 guys have come into town now for 3 years running. It was the same kind of thing, coming out of COVID, I was feeling lonely. It was like our community had kind of dissolved. We hadn't been spending time with people, hadn't been getting outside as much as I wanted. We also became parents kind of early in the pandemic. And I just wanted a place to bring friends from like that I had met from the internet, over the past decade plus together and give them something to do. And also to not be distracted by phones, by content, by technology, and really just be in community doing something enjoyable and restorative. And it has been awesome. It's been one of the best things I've done. And, some people might hear like fishing, doesn't it hurt the fish? And why would you want to do that? And it's honestly about like so much more than that. And it's not about, to your point, eating the fish or keeping the fish or killing the fish or whatever. It's about learning something about nature and being a part of something. And there are very few things I do in my life where when I'm in it, I don't think about anything. But when I'm fishing, when I'm fly fishing on a river, I do not think about anything else. It's only the thing right in front of me and perfecting what I'm doing and having fun chatting with the guide or talking to a friend who's right next to me. And I just think that's like the greatest gift in this era when we have access to so much stuff all the time. To just shut all that off is a huge gift.
You know what the worst part about fishing is? You get into a flow state and then all of a sudden you're done. It's like time goes by so quickly. And I hate that. I want to be out there forever. And I find that on a 14-hour day, it feels like literally just 1 hour. But I love the flow state as well. I mean, you're just kind of in it. There's nothing else to focus on. And it's just challenging enough that you have to kind of like think about only one thing and one thing only. It's such an amazing. Do you find time flies when you're fishing as well?
Oh yeah, it goes by so fast. It's like we'll have a whole day and then we'll get to the end and it's already dinner time and we'll think, where'd the time go? We'll have a whole 3 days and we'll get to the end. And it's like, wow, we've been out here a long time, but it really doesn't feel like it. Obviously, this isn't a show about fishing, but I think it is indicative of what I see consistently in people who come on the show and people who are really great at what they do is they typically have something they do for them that they really enjoy. It's often outside, it's often away from their day-to-day work. And this is a great example of it for you and for me. But this book that I came across was honestly one of the most impactful reads of probably the past decade for me. It's called The Nature Fix by Florence Williams. And in it, I think it's a she basically outlines all of the literature and academic research about nature's effect on our body and our physiology. And the summary point that she makes is basically a prescription for how to use nature to experience wellness and staying connected with yourself. And I think it's basically something like a day every week or like 4 hours every week. So a long hike or something like that. 2 days or a day, like a full day once a month where you're like gone outside all day, 14 hours fishing or whatever. And then a 72-hour period once a quarter. And she talks about the different kind of physiological changes you experience on doing each of those things. But the one that is most impactful is doing 72 full hours outside, not under a roof and not on technology, because that's how long it takes basically for your body to reset from all of its normal rhythms and patterns and like adjust to the slower pace of things. And I don't abide by that fully. I wish that I could, and I'm hoping to work towards that where I can get that much time outside. But doing it a couple times a year and also having the more regular kind of like hikes has been huge for just my own mental well-being, staying connected to myself, thinking for myself. All of that has been huge. And it's definitely helped my business too.
As much as I can, I try to find pockets of time to just step away. Even now, I take a lot of my meetings while on walks around the neighborhood. That has been actually pretty big for my mental health and just physical abilities. I mean, I'm no longer as sore and my joints don't hurt as much simply because I'm moving more. I used to sit for hours for meetings. Why not just go outside and take them? And if I have to be in front of the computer, I have a walking pad underneath me. And so just again, especially, I mean, I'm turning 42 in a minute here. And it's like, I got to really pay attention to that stuff now. I feel it when I don't take care of myself. I feel it when I don't eat well. I feel it when I overwork myself, or especially I feel it if I don't get enough sleep. I used to not value sleep as much as I should have. I used to be proud of the fact that I could function off of 5 hours of sleep a day. Bad, wrong, don't do that. Now I literally feel it if I get, 30 minutes less than I should. And so I optimize for that, right? And so I try to play a game. I'm wearing my Whoop to try to optimize my sleep score, all those things, because I always like trying to make it fun and like a game if I'm trying to figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah, you've talked about a little bit about this more recently. I think especially as you approach your 40th birthday, kind of shifting from grind, kind of take care of everyone else, the family, the kids, and really also prioritizing your own health, your own well-being. And I'm curious as you've made that shift, and I think this is kind of like a midlife shift for people who are aware and understand that like, look, every day is not promised. You don't get infinite time. And one of the ways you can influence that is to invest in, for me, it's been a belief change, like an inner belief change of I deserve to feel good and I deserve to live a long life. Not that I ever consciously felt like I did it, but I think I treated myself like I needed to beat myself up and do things for other people much more than taking care of myself and investing in my own well-being. And I heard your version of that as I listened to some of the content that you put out and kind of saw you approaching this kind of midlife transition. What was the hardest part of that, changing that and really investing in yourself that way?
There were a lot of changes that I've recently made, more mentally than anything I've talked about the physical changes and things I've done, which have contributed to better mental clarity. But the hardest part for me as an Enneagram 3 is for all of my life, I've based my value in how well I've helped other people, how many thank yous I get, how much value that I offer to others, and how much they perceive that. What I've learned is that's a very dangerous place to live, because your mood or my mood, my level of happiness was all based on not me, but other people. And so this is great because if I could make other people happy and serve people, great. And now I'm riding high on that. But then if somebody has a misunderstanding or a bad experience or something, then it like affects me gutturally. It affects my day, which then affects my family and affects my mood, affects my health. And I've learned recently that I can only control what I can control, and my value should be put in the work that I'm doing toward great things, not necessarily the outcome of those great things. This is very important for creators to understand, especially when you are working so hard on, for example, like a video, and you put your heart and soul into it, and you got it out there on the day you said you would, and then it just flops. If you base your mood on the fact that it flopped, then good luck trying to create another video, versus you did what you said you were going to do and when you were going to do it. What could I learn from the results? But just keep going, and you've won. You've won in the bonuses, any result that can happen from that, or the learnings that come from a failure. That's number one, disconnecting my mood, my value, my happiness on just alone how other people feel about me. Number two, on a somewhat related level, I've just been now recently more able to let go of just, I don't normally swear on my stuff, but I'm going to say it because I think it portrays what I'm, just the bullshit. I'm tired of it. I don't need it. It's not anything that provides value to me. Anything that I can feel that is just a person either trying to troll or hate, for example, or it's just like stupid stuff people are wasting their calories and energy on. I'm just like, I don't have time for that. I'm old now, and I have more important things to put my energy into. Things that, for example, my kids, they're getting older every single day, and eventually they're going to get out of the house. My son is in high school now, and I hardly see him as much comparatively to what was before, because my wife and I both stayed home, so we were with him all the time. Now he's at band, and he's at jazz, and he's at his friend's house, or at Target, or at the mall, or whatever. And thankfully, I'm still able to chauffeur him around because he's not old enough to drive. But next year, he's going to drive, and I'm going to have even less time with him. So I'm grateful for the time that we've had, but at the same time, like anything that is just BS out there is getting in the way of that. It's like, no, I don't need that. I have more important things to worry about. And it's been such a relief to just not let those BS moments like affect me like they used to. Like it has been a whole new world for me to just not care about them anymore and not waste my time.
Yeah. And you had a lot of, well, I don't know this for a fact. I assume it's true that over 15, 16 years online, very public with everything. You've dealt with a lot of that over the years. Like,
yeah, especially public with my revenue. I mean, that always will attract a certain kind of people who are in disbelief, or who feel like you're doing it in the wrong way, or just are very loud because they're defending their own position and the choices they've made in their life, whatever it might be. I mean, I've over the years discovered that hurt people, right? That if hurt is coming toward me, it's usually because those people have been receiving hurt from somebody else too, in some way, shape, or form. So I've learned that as well. And I'm grateful to have gone through tough moments on my way here. For example, in 2011, I think it was, or 2012, I woke up one day to a nasty comment on my blog. It was a person calling me a con artist, and that like, he was like commenting on the way I dress, and if I actually had money, I would have worn better clothes, like just really going at it. I mean, 1,000 words. It was like an essay calling me a scammer. And I knew that wasn't true. But reading those words, I was like, how could a person think this? And then not only that, after I deleted it, because I was like, oh, get out of my house, I started getting messages from a number of other colleagues who said, hey, there's this really nasty comment that somebody left about you on my blog. Oh, somebody left that on my blog too. And this person had gone out and actually copy and pasted that same essay about me on every place that I was mentioned online. There were forum discussions about me. And of course, those people didn't know me. They just knew what they read about something they read from somebody they trusted. this person. And then all of a sudden there's like a hate group about me, a lot of misinformation and disinformation. And I stopped. I just wanted to go and curl up into a ball and leave. I actually left the online space for a good 2.5 to 3 weeks. I was publishing daily. And at that point I just stopped. And it wasn't until a good friend of mine, Derek Halpern, from at the time he had a blog called Social Triggers. He and I were trading a lot of tips with each other over time, and he hadn't heard from me in a while. I told him what happened, and he got mad at me. I mean, very New Yorker. He was like, dude, don't be a bee about it. Like, what are you doing? And then he said this. He said, every second you waste on this hater or troll thinking about it is a second you're taking away from all the people who care for you, who need you, who love you. And that was really the moment that hit me. I eventually got the courage to get back online and fight through that, mostly just my own mental feelings around imposter syndrome and such that was happening around that time. And then eventually I got the courage to reach out to this person directly and basically just ask, like, why did you do this? Like, what did I do to you to trigger this? And I found out that because he saw that I was popular online, his answer was, well, I thought it would help me get more traffic back to my website. And I was like, really? Like, I was the victim of that? I could have taught you ways to get more traffic to your website that didn't tear somebody down, but I'm not going to do that anymore because I don't like you. And that was really the first time I was like, oh my gosh, this person must have gone through some stuff to feel like this was like the strategy to use to build his, authority online. And I've grown since then, and I've passed on those lessons to my audience and to my kids. Keone, my son, when he was 11 or 12, he wanted to start a YouTube channel, and you have to be over 13 to start one. So a parent could start one on a kid's behalf, and of course we were like, okay, fine. I mean, April, my wife, and I were a little reluctant, but we also wanted to encourage him to create. Being a creator is awesome. I'm a creator myself. It would behoove us to do that, but we also know the downsides of that. And so I was very upfront with my son about, okay, if you do this, you're going to have now people around the world seeing what you do, and you need to make sure you understand like how the world functions and how people can behave sometimes. And so we taught him that, and he was like, okay. And he created some videos about puzzles he was doing, some Lego related things. He created one video that actually saw like 50,000 views. He had made a skee ball machine out of cardboard, and it was pretty fun, and it did pretty well. And one day in the morning, Keone comes downstairs. He's like, "Hey, Daddy, how do you delete a comment off of my YouTube, off of a YouTube channel?" We had been kind of surveying the comments and making sure nothing was too crazy, and there was nothing really bad until that morning. My son brought me over to his YouTube channel, and there was a comment that said, "Go kill yourself," to a 12-year-old kid. And I look at my son and I go, "Well, what do you make of this? What do you feel about this?" And he goes, "I feel sorry for this person. I hope they're okay." And I was like, oh, shoot. Like, he got the message. And I wish somebody taught me that when I was a kid, how cruel the world can be sometimes. But I was happy that I had gone through what I had gone through to pass him that message. And then we deleted the message and turned comments off because we were just like, okay, we're not going to deal with this right now. But I was very proud of him and proud of us, April and I, as parents, that we can prepare him or seemingly prepare him for harsh truths of the world. We're not helicopter parents. We let them fall, we let them fail, we let them struggle so that they can become stronger. And we're there as guide rails and support, but not to do everything for them. That's how we raise our kids. And it's for our kids working out really, really well. Not telling other parents how to raise their kids, but this is just how we found and what works for us and in our experiences. So
that's a really beautiful story. Yeah. It's an example of just what I've experienced as kind of the healing nature of parenting, that all the things that, there's one mode of parenting that was kind of like, it wasn't really made fun of. It was more just like villainized, of basically reliving your own mistakes through your kid, or reliving your own dreams through your kid, and like really pushing onto your kids what you wanted for yourself. And I think maybe for like our parents' generation, that was a little more common. I'm sure it happens everywhere still. See a lot of it in things like travel baseball and other things like that.
Yeah. Different cultures too. Asian cultures, like you have to have straight A's, be a doctor,
totally,
or else you're a failure kind of thing.
But there is another mode of parenting, which is like, look, I want to support you in becoming who you're meant to be. And I just want to make sure that I help you not experience the same pains I did. I want to support you in a new way that gives you lessons like this, that allows you to know in your heart, like at the soul level, that when someone says, go kill yourself on a 12-year-old's YouTube video, that is about them, not you. I did not have that confidence. I've been online a long time, but I think only now, I'm 37 now, could I start this podcast and just know that when I get emails that are negative and mean, that I can just delete them and I just let them wash off my back. Before this year, I don't think I could have done it. And so you had to live through that and grow into the place where you could. And I've heard you tell a story of, in some cases, when you can see that there's hurt coming through the words, that sometimes you'll actually reach out still and connect with people, and that can be a kind of healing experience for both of you. I wonder if there's an example of that you've had.
I learned that from a couple people. Gary Vaynerchuk was the first person who I saw do this when his first book came out, Crush It. There was a comment, I think it was the top rated comment on Amazon. It was from a negative comment. And the first reply was from Gary saying, hey, let's get on a phone call. I want to chat about this with you and see if I can understand why you feel this way and see what I can do to help you. And then the comment below that was the person who left the original negative comment, who said, I still don't agree with Gary. Had the call. He's great. He's awesome. I don't agree with him, but I think he's doing this for the right reasons, or something like that. And I was like, whoa, like I just saw like a whole story unfold in the, review section of Amazon because of somebody like Gary who had done the hard thing. Now, that's not to say that that's what you should do. And I don't think that's meant that's not a remedy for everybody who comes across those kinds of things. But I learned from them. It's like, oh, people are misunderstood. Okay. And then I see people like Ramit Sethi from I Will Teach You to Be Rich be very engaged with his hateful audience. And in some cases, just stir them up even more. But in other cases, really transform them. Whether that means just helping to fill in those gaps of misunderstanding or to even convince them otherwise. The fact that, at least in Ramit's case, that, maybe renting is a better option for people than buying a house. And it's just really interesting how that fits into his brand. And that's very much him. For me, there have been many moments where people have reached out because they've misunderstood something or because they heard something from somebody else. And a couple times I've reached out to engage and have conversations with people. And I've learned a lot about just how human psychology works. In 99% of those cases, people just want to be heard. They just want to know that somebody's listening to them because they don't get anybody else to listen to them elsewhere. And so, of course, online is the place to go. If nobody's listening to you, you're going to go online and just be as loud as possible to try to be heard. And sometimes people are so taken aback. I mean, many times people delete those comments because they're like, oh, crap, like he saw me say that. I didn't think he'd see me say that. So, people can hide behind their anonymity online. But in some cases, people are grateful. They're like, wow, you actually responded and you're listening to me. And sometimes we'll get in a deep conversation, and a lot of times, eventually, the hard story comes out. Pat, I'm so sorry. I lost my mother recently, and I've been just so angry, and I took it out on you because you were there, and I just see you and your family, and you're so happy, and just like, I'm sorry. And I go, there's no reason to be sorry, dude. Like, you lost your mom. That's hard. I don't know what that feels like yet. So all I can do is just say, I'm here for you. And even though you said those things, like, I forgive you and I'm here for you. Like, let me know what I can do to help. Some of those people have become my biggest fans because finally somebody listened to them. So there's a lot of cases of things like that. Another time I reached out to somebody who was a hater of something I was doing. This was actually on the Pokémon side of things. So I have a live event for Pokémon called Card Party. And our first year was in Anaheim, California. We had 2,500 people come in to hang out and nerd out on Pokémon for 2.5 days, which was great. There was one person in particular who was super against what I was doing. They said that I was charging too much. They were like, who are you to put on an event? You're brand new to the space, which I was very upfront with. Like what gives you the right to put on an event when there's other people who could probably do it better than you? And I was seeing all this happen publicly, and I said, okay, well, just come to the event. I'll get you a free ticket and show you. So he took me up on this, and he was there. And I said, all I want from you in exchange is a video of you after talking about how the event went for you. That's it. And I want you to be honest in that video. So we came. I didn't see him there, but he didn't cause any trouble. He went home and he created a video that was like, the event was pretty fun, but I still think it was too expensive and all this stuff. And it was obvious to me at that point that he was doing this for the wrong reasons. He was not trying to see if this event was actually worthwhile for the community. He just wanted to gatekeep a little bit. And there's a lot of gatekeepers in spaces. If you're getting into a brand new space, there's going to be people who are very protective. And again, I empathize. Lead with empathy. I empathize with this person. He's very protective of his space and wanting to make sure, no scammers or con artists are coming in. And there's a lot of them in the Pokemon space for sure. So of course, it makes sense for when you see this person who's not a longtime Pokemon collector come in and start to charge money for a live event, that it just seems kind of odd. So I get it. And all I could do, even though I couldn't convince him that this was the best event, well, there were people there who I could serve who were experiencing an event of a lifetime. So much so that they've come back the next years. They're coming back this coming year. They've made lifelong friends. They continue to talk about it. They support by wearing the merch and tell their friends about it. So even though there is one naysayer who is very loud about it, there are 100 times more, 1,000 times more people who love what I'm doing. And I've just also realized that you can't please everybody. That was another thing that I've had to learn. I can't please everybody. And especially as a creator, if you try to please everybody, you're actually going to please nobody. It just means you're playing middle ground and you don't have something to stand on. And you're just trying to lightly touch these topics that might be controversial versus like taking a stand, believing in something, saying that you believe in it, knowing that other people on the other end might not like you for that. But there's people on this end who will like you even more because of it. That's something I'm learning even as I go, especially as a creator, to be more upfront with the beliefs that I have and the things that I understand and kind of drawing that line in the sand. Because too long I've been playing it safe, but especially today with information being so abundant as it is, people connect with other people. And if you're just an average person that everybody likes, then they're probably not going to love you.
Yeah. This resonates a lot with me. I think I've gone most of my life trying to be, maybe even using depth sometimes, of like, well, here's every perspective you might think about this thing. And I've done so much research that there's not even any gaps in all the ways you might think about this. But being unwilling to say, and here's what I think about it. And I think there's a difference between those things of being well-researched enough to have an informed opinion that you then share and say, this is the conclusion I've reached, versus here's everything you might think, reach your own conclusions. And I think both have value, but I'm definitely stepping more into, it's like if you and I have lunch, I'll tell you what I think about things. But if I had the same conversation, quote unquote, in an essay online or in a YouTube video, I would be much more nuanced, and I would be kind of like covering the edges of the thing to make sure that you either can't disagree with me, or if you disagree with me, like I know that edge exists. Like I know you might disagree with that. And so I'm working on that too. And I think that's interesting because we've been around a long time. I mean, you longer than me, but we've been around this stuff a long time. Like we combined have thousands and thousands of recorded hours of conversation and stuff on the internet, with you being like 80% of that. And only now at this point in life, can we start to say like, oh, maybe I should say what I actually think. And not in a hurtful way, not in an unkind way, not in a way that doesn't leave room for other people to think differently. But
right. That's
just to say like, yeah, it's okay for me to have an opinion on these things.
It's having a conversation versus commanding. This is how it should be no matter what. If you're opposing that, you are wrong, versus here's what I believe and why. Here are the facts that I can lay out as why I feel this is the right thing. And if you disagree, that's okay. I'm still going to be your friend. I'm still going to support you. I'm not going to agree with you on this, but we can disagree and commit to each other's success. And that's something that Matt taught me, Matt Garland, who former CEO of SPI Media. Now it's Caleb Wojcik, which is awesome. But Matt taught me something. You know how there's this thing called like agree to disagree? We're just like, fine, we're going to disagree on this. And ultimately what that means is I hope you're wrong and I hope something happens to show that I'm right. That's not a great way to build a partnership or relationship or friendship. Rather, Matt taught me this thing called disagree and commit, where you both have an understanding that you aren't really in alignment with something, but you still are in commitment to each other's success and will support them. And especially in a role where there is some sort of command level, like CEO to, director to manager to worker or whatever. We've taught this to our employees at SPI. It's this idea that, coming from, for example, a director's level, if you don't agree with that, let's have a discussion. But it may very well lead to disagree, but you're still committing because that's what the director believes is the right way to do it. And you're going to do your best work to support that. And we're going to learn from that together, win or fail. Nobody is wrong. We're working on this bigger vision, this thing that we believe is going to do well for the company. And I love that. And even like April and I have adopted that a bit when it comes to certain things.
April's your wife.
April is my wife. Yes, not the month. The whole month of April, I'm just in disagreement with everything. No, April's my wife. And we've had long discussions about things. We don't it's impossible to get two people, let alone two people who are married with each other, to agree on literally everything. But we can support each other no matter what. And I think that's the important part. And our relationship is great because we have that feeling. Talk about things before they happen versus in a reactionary way after they happen. I mean, there's going to be moments where something unexpected happened and we have to figure it out together, or one person might react and we have to kind of, wait or calm down a bit. But in general, we try to plan ahead by playing out the scenarios of what might happen and discuss, hey, if this were the case, how would you feel about that? Where do you line up with that? And sometimes we're in agreement, sometimes we're not, and we discuss it. Sometimes we come to a compromise. Sometimes it's a disagree and commit to each other. And I think that's important. That recommitment to each other is key.
There's a really wonderful principle in there that I've definitely learned over time. And being with my wife, we've been together for 15 years now and married for 8, coming up on 9. The difference between, for example, if you're going on a weekend trip and saying, hey, what are your expectations and hopes and worries about this weekend? And what are mine? And how can we plan for those hopes? What do you want out of it ahead of time, rather than getting on the other side of it and finding out, oh, well, I had really hoped to do X, Y, and Z on that trip and we didn't get to. Now you have no ability to do that. Versus on the front end, if you bring these things up, not only can it prevent conflict later, which isn't guaranteed, but it definitely at least gives you the chance to be heard and to say, well, here's what I want, here's what you want. And those things are in conflict. And so what are we going to do about that? Versus being in conflict implicitly without it being said and having that kind of come out while you're on a trip, for example. That those things, there's a principle there that I think is applicable across domains, whether it's marriage, with your kids, in business, that having the conversation in advance really changes the possibilities and the options on the table for what can happen from there. Whereas if you're doing it as a reaction, it just is what it is. And all you can do is kind of process at that point.
Right. And they're hard conversations, but you have to have them. Son, let me tell you about the birds and the bees, right? Much better to have that hard conversation beforehand than, son, what are you going to name your bee?
Yeah.
It's anyway.
So speaking of kids, this is something I wanted to touch on with you. And you touched on it a little bit, talking about the YouTube channel that Keone started. And back in 2013, your kids were 3.5 and 6 months or something like that. You did this interview, I think it was on the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis Howes. And you said that at the time you were optimizing for being around your kids as much as possible. That was kind of your number one career goal at that point. And you had been kind of running your businesses for 5 years at that point, and things were going well. And so you had the flexibility of when you worked on them, and you could still have the income coming in. So now here we are, more than 10 years later. Your son's 15, daughter a few years younger, and you did that. And I'm just curious how it turned out to have been around as much as you were, and whether you lived up to what you were hoping for and maybe what you learned from it.
I was 90% successful with what I said I was doing on that show. The other 10% was selfishly saying yes to every single public speaking opportunity that I had come across my table because A, I loved it so much. B, it paid at that time. And C, it was okay, I could get out for a little bit and just kind of take a breathing moment from the kids. Very selfish of me because I played that card, I will say, very honestly, early on with my wife. Oh, it's for the business. Even though, yes, it was for the business, but dang, I was having a good time and eating all this great food. And I remember one time I went to an event and I had shared a picture of the steak dinner I was having with April. And she immediately sent back this half bowl of mac and cheese with no words. No words.
And she's
And
like, if you ever send me a picture of a steak like that again, I will cut you like you cut that steak.
yeah, basically. It wasn't until the pandemic, in fact, where I couldn't speak anymore and I had to slow down, that I realized that, oh, I don't need to go out and speak as much as I do. And I don't need to add additional work for April for those moments. And I don't have to say yes to every single one. I could say yes to the ones that I want to, that makes sense, that, everybody they like would be best for everything. Now, mind you, the kids were a little bit older at that time. So even me traveling at that point after the pandemic, it wouldn't have been as hard as it was for April in the beginning. So I do feel like I could have done a better job. I know that I could have of communicating and actually just thinking a little bit more holistically as a family versus just for me. That was probably the biggest mistake I made, because not all those speaking events turned out to, have a positive ROI in the sense of the term. But in general, that's 10%. 90% of the time, building the business around optimizing for time with the family has been amazing. April and I had spent almost every waking moment with the kids until they went to school. And that was the first time. Maybe it was a little bit rough on them having no parents, to go from parents full time to no parents. Like, we didn't have babysitter or do any daycare or any of that stuff. But despite being with them all the time, it still feels like we didn't have enough time. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't even imagine what it would have been like if I had still had my architecture job and working, 60 hours a week, and my wife maybe had to work in order to, I can't even imagine. So no matter how much time you spend with them, it's always not going to feel like enough, which is why when you do spend time with them, it's about not just like, are you physically in the same space as them, but are you mentally with them? Are you having conversations with them? Are you actually there? Your body might be there, but oftentimes our mind isn't. And so I've done, and I've continued to, as much as possible, be present with the family as much as I can be. And that means putting the phone away and having the discipline to not just like habitually open it and read my emails or scroll through social. It means being very curious, especially with the kids, about what they're up to and what they're into. That's the biggest thing I've learned is, and maybe this was a result of my dad just not really being interested in the things I was interested in. I don't know if he tried or not, but it just didn't feel like it. But for me, I've taken the approach of whatever the kids are into. I don't care what they're into, but whatever they're into, I want to learn about it and join them in that process. It happened with Fortnite during the pandemic. It got so deep that we were, even Kai, she was on the PC upstairs, and my son and I were in my office here, and we were all in a party together, and we were just having a blast together, so much that we started a Twitch channel called Hot Coals Only. I don't know why. And we would have like 7 people watch us play Fortnite, but it was so fun, and we still have those memories together. And we would talk at the dinner table about what new Fortnite skins came out and the new season that was coming up. This allowed myself to be a part of that conversation now. And then it happened with Pokémon in 2020, when my kids started collecting Pokémon and buying Pokémon from the store. And my friend Chris Ducker got us into it a little bit, and we started chatting about it and getting deep into it. So I started to research it more and go deep into it and watch other YouTube channels so I can pass on that information to the kids. And eventually they outgrew it. I did not. I'm still doing Pokémon. And now I have a YouTube channel and other things. My office is all Pokémon related stuff just in front of me. You just don't see it piled, in the camera view right now. And it's been so amazing because it's been neat to do the Pokémon thing now as a creator. I didn't go into it thinking I'd be a creator, but I went into it wanting to be a part of the community, and I saw a lot of holes that I could fill. And that's exactly what I'm doing. But it's, again, allowed me to spend more time with them, to have conversations with them, the kids. And the kids are both now employees of my Pokémon company. They actually work in the company. They do things like help with scripting and ideation. My daughter helps me with thumbnails and photography. My son's helping me actually in the videos every once in a while. And they're getting paid. And they're getting paid a certain amount of money that allows for us to not have to report that to the IRS, so that I can save money on taxes. They can get and start to learn how to manage a budget. They have a Roth IRA now because of this. And we have these stories that we can share with each other now because we're, again, doing all these things together. It's been so amazing to include them. I mean, even before the Pokemon thing, Keone had come with me to a few events that I spoke at, and I was teaching them what it was like to get on stage and hold on audience's attention. And now at school, he's known for his presentations. Like, he just knows because he's used to seeing me on there. And I've taught him and I've shared with him some tips and strategies for storytelling and getting up on stage. And that's something that I wish, gosh, it took me years to get comfortable in front of people. And he's now doing this, in high school and even in middle school. It's really cool to see. He even gave a presentation at my event in San Diego in 2019, which was awesome. But yeah, he's come with and just, has been a part of it. And all I can do is show him how I do what I do and what I think. And I'm going to leave it up to him to develop who he believes he is. And I'm not going to force him into anything, because I was forced into stuff and it was stuff that wasn't me. And I had to get, thankfully, forced out of it to discover myself. But I know he's going into his teenage years. Things happen, hormones, brain functions, all this stuff, relationships. These are new. This is all new territory. So I don't want to pretend like I know everything that's happening or know how to manage everything. But we're doing our best and trying to keep open lines of communication. Here's the one thing I think that the years with them has really helped us. They are very open with us, and that is huge. Whenever they have problems at school or there are things happening in their life that they just need some help with, they come to us. And I love that. Maybe not for everything, but the fact that they're having open lines of communication on these hard topics.
What do you think you did that most led to that? I mean, we're talking about all of these things, the ways you've included them, but like, what makes it feel safe to them to do that?
Because I've gone to them when I've gone through struggles. That's it.
You modeled it.
I'm showing that I am not the all-knowing parent, that I too struggle, and I can lean on them for help as well. In fact, when they were little, we used to pick them up from school together every day. And the first question that we would ask would be, what can you teach me about something you learned today? Not how was school or what did you do today, but what can you teach me? Again, showing that we're not the all-knowing perfect parent, but you have the ability to provide value to us as well as a child. And I think that is what has helped for continuing those open lines of communication. And again, just demonstrating and being an example, leading by example, right? It's one thing to just say things, but then hypocritically you do them too, versus you just speak with your actions. And so I'm 100% sure that's why.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Still happens. Like, I'll pick up my son from school and I'll be like, gosh, I am struggling so hard today. And then, the conversation goes from there. Why? What happened? And then I can open up and sometimes I've cried in front of my kids because of things that have been happening in my life with work and all this other stuff with, people who have passed away now in my life. I'm open about that with my kids. And then I can see that it's coming back in return as well. Again, I keep getting people telling me, oh, but 15, 16, 17, it's going to be completely different no matter how great they are now, which sure. But for the way it is now, I'm enjoying it and we're going to savor every moment of it.
Yeah, for sure. Something that I've noticed and that we've talked about is that as your kids have hit this age, and this has been true throughout my experience of fatherhood so far too. So I've been at it 5 years, you've been at it 15, is how kids going through phases of life bring up memories of my own life. And I think you've had that experience too. And you wrote this really kind of moving and like honest LinkedIn post about your experience of being a young person and kind of being in high school, being super short. We were both super short in high school. I was like 4'11" when I entered ninth grade. I think you were even shorter for longer.
Shorter than that, yeah. And
that leads to like these obvious but sad implications. Sometimes you get bullied, you get made fun of, you get picked on. Girls will say you're like adorable, but it's not like a serious thing. It's more like you're adorable like a puppy because you're tiny.
Yeah. My cheeks would get squeezed. Yes.
Yeah. And it has an effect on your self-confidence, right? And so you wrote this post and you said that the core lesson you learned was do not engage, do not stand out, do not speak up. And we've talked a little bit about this already, but I'm just curious about how you began to come out of that and like what the experience of joining band was like at the time to begin to help you shape your identity. I guess the core question here is how did you go from don't stand out to my weirdness and my uniqueness is a gift? And what was that journey like over time?
Yeah, I've definitely learned how to embrace my weird. And I think band has taught me that. But don't stand out, don't engage. That was my defense for the bullies that came in my life. I was very, very short, like we were talking about. I was not 5 feet tall my junior year of high school. And I was always the cute kid, but not the cute kid, right? I wanted to be like fine, as the girls would say. Oh my God, Darren, he's so fine. But it was like, oh, Pat, he's so cute. It's like,
It's the
okay,
word.
you know? How did I get out of that? Well, the reason why I think I fell in love with band was because in the band, as a whole, you're supposed to blend in. You're not supposed to stand out. You wear the same uniform, you march the same steps and formation. As Nick Cannon said in Drumline, one band, one sound. Well, in the band, you meet this incredible family of other weirdos and people who are trying to escape the real world, who are trying to escape the bullies, or who maybe aren't jock enough to join any teams but want to be a part of something. There might be a small fraction of people who join marching band because literally it's just a PE credit and they're there for that reason, which is fine too. But anyway, you're there and you start to realize that, oh, these people are kind of interesting and different like me. And they're accepted. And I'm accepted here. And this is incredible. And we're together building something special. But then as you get to grow older in the band, you start to understand, well, what makes you unique in this space? And so it was actually through the leadership components of band, from being a section leader, I was a student director, and then I went on to college to join the band. And the band in college was like crazy because everybody wanted to be there. They volunteered their time to be there. It wasn't like a PE credit or because that was just like what their parents told them to do. They volunteered their time to be there. So everybody was so much a fanatic of what they were doing. And it was like, oh, these are my people even more now. And through leadership there, you start to understand that although we are in a group to be one unified band, within the group, and in order to be a leader, you have to stand out, right? So if you want to be the section leader of the trumpet section, you have to be a better trumpet player and understand how people work and understand the politics of all of that. Because there's voting and other things that happen at the end of the year at the banquet to become section leader. And then I became a part of the musical activity committee. And then my third year, my junior year, I tried out to become the student director. This is the person who at the football game conducts the band and travels with the band to football games and stuff. And it's one of the higher rankings inside of the band. And I lost by 2 votes. And I was going to be a senior and I was just going to be a regular old band member. And at the end of that senior year, I said, no, this is my dream. I want to become student director. A large part of that was because my band director in high school was a large influence on me. He was like in a way, a father figure and a good example. And he had went to Cal himself. And so I was at Cal. I wanted to be student director and follow his footsteps. And so I actually took one class my 5th year, one landscape architecture course in my 5th year of college, just so I can be in the band again and give it one more shot. And I had won by a landslide that year. And I had won because I had developed the relationships with a lot of the people in the band as a leader, despite not being technically a leader that senior year. I stepped up to try to help out as much as I could. I started to understand what my brand was inside of that band. And I became known as somebody who was trying to help others, even not in my section, especially helping out those freshmen. And in a way, it's like, okay, maybe a part of my brain was like, okay, I need the freshman vote this coming year. So I'm going to be good with the freshmen, almost like, with the election and different kind of groupings of votes. But really, I was there because I wanted everybody to have a great time. And that's what I became known for. And so it's very easy for me to win that next year because I had already done it. I just wasn't technically the student director. And then my 5th year went on to be a year that changed my life because it was access to an executive meeting that happened with myself, the drum major, and a few others at a restaurant that was owned by a former band member, Momo's Restaurant in San Francisco. He was actually friends with a principal of a Bay Area architecture firm. And it was that sit-down dinner, because I was a 5th year student director, that got me access to my first job as an architect. And so, again, just finding myself in a space where I felt safe, I think was the key. I would not be here today if it wasn't for the band and if it wasn't for trying to serve this band and be a leader and help others in the space.
And I get the sense that over your career, and I want to get into this in the second half of the conversation, so we'll come back to it, but I get the sense that throughout your career, you've gone from like seeking out and finding spaces where you belonged and felt safe to basically creating them. I mean, that's a lot of what entrepreneurship is like sometimes you just have to be the one to create the space where you're going to feel good and invite other people into it. And
Yeah.
I've seen that from you over and over. And I think you've been a wonderful mentor and guide in that way for me, I know. But before we go there, to kind of round out the first half of our conversation, in our world that we both come up in, like you're famous. Everyone knows who Pat Flynn is in our world. And in many other worlds, people may not have heard of you before. And so I think for many of the people who have followed you for a long time and have been in the creator space, they'll know your origin story. And then there's a whole bunch of people who don't. And so we're kind of getting the like superhero kind of origin story here at the beginning. And there was this inciting incident on your hero's journey that's led you here. And it was going to work at that architecture firm that you just talked about and getting laid off there. And that would be one of the greatest gifts to the internet ever. But at the time, I think it felt like one of the scariest things ever to happen to you. So I wonder if you might just tell a story about kind of the last time you walked into your boss's office and what it was like to walk out of there without a job.
You want to hear a funny story? My boss who let me go, his last name was Smart. Joseph Smart. I just realized this like last month and it blew my mind because I was on LinkedIn. I'm starting to get more active on LinkedIn now. And I went to check out my old boss and I was like, Joseph Smart. Oh my gosh, it's my brand name. I don't think that was intentional at all. But in 2008, I had proposed to April. She said yes, obviously. This was in March. And 2 months later, I was told I was going to be let go from my dream job. And so a lot of things were happening and a lot of things were going through my mind. My first instinct and reaction was to beg and plead to try to get back into this space. When I found out that this job was, or my company was not hiring at all, and remember, this was 2008, the Great Recession. Nobody was putting any money into building anything, so they didn't need designers or architects at all. So they were leaning out, and I went along with that. But I ended up calling every engineer, mechanical engineer, plumbing company that we ever worked with in any of our contract work to just beg and plead to see if there was any openings. Because this was what I dedicated all my schooling to, was this world. And here I was, despite having done everything the way I was supposed to, despite going above and beyond my job description. I was just promoted to job captain a number of months prior to that as well. And then I got let go. It's like, it didn't make sense to me. I was upset. I was angry. I felt deceived. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I felt like maybe I took the wrong path. This is why I watched Back to the Future like 36 times, because after that, I fell into a small state of depression. Thankfully, April was there to kind of lift me up during that time and said that she would be there no matter what. Because I was worried about that too. I'm like, you didn't sign up for this. And here I am, like, I'm going to have to move back in with my parents. And that's what we did. She moved back in with her parents while we were engaged. I moved back in with mine. I was like, life is going backwards. I wish I had a time machine that I could go back and change things and, warn everybody about the Big Short that was coming and everything. No, but after 156 minutes, after 1 hour and 56 minutes, which is the length of Back to the Future, I would always come back to reality, and there was no time machine. There was nothing I could do. But eventually I realized that there are some truths to this fictional story of Back to the Future, and that is the things that you do now, the actions that you take now, determine your future. And you don't have a time machine to get there, but what you do now actually affects those things that will happen. And the way I was living, the way I was thinking about my life and things at that point, I saw a future that was not happy because I wasn't doing anything about it, right? I was going down the wrong path. My dad had told me to go back to school, which was an option to go get my graduate's degree in architecture, which, he was like, this will help you now. And, you go back to school and you get your master's degree and you'll come back out when everybody's back in the workforce and you'll be coming back even stronger. So that was an option. But I didn't want to go back to school. And I had done everything the way I was supposed to already. This was not supposed to happen. I don't want to go back to school. And so I decided to explore and to see what else was out there for me. Now, I was living in San Diego and I had come across a person who had pitched me an amazing business idea. And he said, come to this meeting tonight. You're going to see there's a number of other people who are looking to start businesses too. And we'll show you what this is all about. I was like, can you just tell me? He's like, just come to the meeting. I said, okay. So I went to a hotel in La Jolla, and they had rented out this ballroom, tons of decorations. I sat front row. I was like, whatever this is, I'm gonna make it work. I want to change my life. And all of a sudden, there's this fanfare of people coming out from the back and getting on stage with sashes, platinum member, diamond, double diamond, triple diamond, black member. And I'm like, what is this? This is fascinating. And eventually I found out that this was an Amway presentation. But I was caught up in it. I was in this, it was such a spectacle.
Yeah.
And eventually that evening, I look at my watch. It's 10 p.m. I'm at some dude's house looking through a catalog of stuff that eventually I'm going to sell to my friends and family. And I snap out of it, right? Like the trumpets died down. And I'm like, what? I don't want to sell lotion to my parents. They're going to be wrinkly no matter what. No. I'm like, this is not what I had envisioned. This is not what I want to do. So I go home and they keep calling me and I'm like, I don't want to do Amway. I try the newspaper and I go into the classifieds. Here's a job that pays $35 per hour. That's more than I was getting as an architect. Cool. No information other than that. I go because I'm desperate. We go again. There's another big room with a lot of people. Less fanfare. It's more in a business park. And eventually I see people come out with sporting equipment. I'm like, ooh, this is crazy. And hey, did you know you can make money selling the sport equipment around? And just like, okay, cool. I'm not going to sell sport equipment to my family. And this sounds like, okay, cool. I could be a salesman. I could figure out how to do this. And they said, okay, now in order to get to the level that you could sell the sports equipment, first, you got to sell these knives. Welcome to Cutco. And I was like, really? And then they were like, okay, half of you in here, we're going to interview all of you. Half of you are going to go home. Half of you are going to stay. And I was just like, okay, I got to nail this interview. Even though I didn't want to do it, I wanted to win. I wanted to get there.
Enneagram 3 in you is like, I got to get chosen.
Right? And I got chosen. And they were like, okay, here's what you have to do. First of all, you have to spend this much money to get your equipment. And I was like, I don't have this money. I can't even do this. And that's when I found a podcast called Internet Business Mastery. And at first it sounded super scummy. I'm like, selling on the internet, that sounds weird. But I heard all these stories about people who were legitimately selling decent products, and not physical products, but informational products to people who needed that information. There was one person that they interviewed named Cornelius Fitchner, who had made 6 figures online helping people pass the PM exam or the project management exam. He was telling his story and I was like, this is incredible. Wait, I've taken a number of exams on my way to becoming an architect. Could I potentially teach people on the internet how to pass the LEED exam, which was Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design? That was the last test that I took, and it was very difficult, and there was no information about it online. So I built a website. I built a blog. I joined their academy, got access to their community, and got a lot of help along the way. And lo and behold, by the end of 2008, I had a website that was attracting thousands of visitors per day looking for information about this website. And it was generating revenue because I had sold an ebook study guide on the website. In October of 2008, I had launched an ebook to this community that I was building online about this exam. And it had made $7,908.55 money in my PayPal account. I thought I was going to hear the door knocking and the FBI was going to show up because it just did not feel real. It was like, I'm cheating it somehow. I didn't go to school for business. I'm just figuring it out as I go. I don't understand half of what I'm doing technically here, but somehow people are getting an email with the study guide and I'm getting money in my PayPal account. A month later, I started to get all these emails from customers. I was like, oh no, they're going to complain. They're going to ask for their money back. They're going to sue me. No, it was exactly the opposite. Pat, I passed my exam thanks to you. This was amazing. It was the most helpful thing. I'm going to tell my whole office about it. In fact, there was one woman named Jackie who was having such a hard time with the exam that we had communicated via email. I was kind of tutoring her a little bit. And she got her entire office to individually buy my guide. So that
Wow.
one person, Jackie, turned into 25 customers.
And this is super cool. You were way early on this too. This is like a sustainable design, like sustainable architecture whole thing called LEED, right?
Right.
And this was super early on in this whole movement that's become a massive movement in the architectural space and the design space to build more sustainable buildings and energy efficient buildings over time.
Yeah, the only reason I took that exam was because it was another exam I could take, and I wanted to do more, and I wanted to just keep up-leveling my resume, and then I got laid off, and it was kind of useless to me at that point. However, hearing that interview on that podcast made me realize what was possible, and then I tried it, and I didn't have time to figure out how to do all the steps before taking action. All I knew is I got to get a website up and start putting content on there. And then when I got the idea from the group to write an ebook, which I was like, what is an ebook? People didn't have ebooks back then. They're just like, put your information into a PDF and sell it. And so I sold it for $19.99. I later raised the price to $29 and then later added an audio guide. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I actually recorded the whole thing myself. It was terrible. Went back to my mastermind group and I was like, guys, I don't think this audiobook thing's going to work because mine doesn't sound very good. And they're like, you recorded your own audiobook? They started laughing at me. I was like, wait, I don't have to do it myself? Like, no, take some of the money that you now have from this ebook, go to elance.com, which is, there was Elance and Odesk, and now it's Upwork, I think, that they've migrated to or whatever, and pay a voiceover artist to read your book for you. And I started coming back with all these bids. It was like $400, $10,000, $5,000. I found this woman named Trish, Voiceovers by Trish, and she wanted $2,000 for it. And I was like, dude, that's like 2 months of rent. I kept going back to like how much money things in my real life cost for the stuff I was investing in the business. And I was like, there's no way, like, I'm going to try to re-record it. I'm going to do it myself again. And I got halfway through that. I was like, how much is my time actually worth to me? By doing this, I don't think it's worth much. So I'm going to invest this money, see what happens. And when I launched that audio version of the book, I'd sold it to people who were already customers for like half the price. And I sold it to new people for full price. I made up the cost in one day. And that just showed me like, oh, business. I'm not just like scrappily, although I was doing things scrappily. Like there are things I can learn here as I go that will help make things even easier. But I promise you that if I tried to figure it all out and develop this whole business plan around it, like traditionally how you learn in school to write a business plan and forecast and all this stuff, I wouldn't even like scratch the surface with that. And I remember a specific moment while trying to write this PDF file, stopping because I was like, I don't know how am I going to sell this? Like, I don't understand how PayPal and all this stuff works. Like, how do you connect these? And then one of my mentors in this group, Jeremy, was like, you're not at that stage yet. Like, just finish the book. And I promise you, you will be driven to figure it out then. But if you let that get in the way now, you're not even going to finish the book. So just finish the book. And so I did. And as soon as I did, I was like, okay, my next mission is to figure out how to sell this. And there was nothing else that mattered because I had a book waiting and it was like, this could work. And it did, which was awesome. So that was the beginning of my online journey. A lot of people who hear my story years later who don't hear about how I actually start thinks, they often think that I only make my money by teaching people how to make money, right? That's like the last way that I've done it.
And it's one of the things I love about your journey is like you've had these parallel paths, right? There's like all of these niche things that you've done over time. And then the Smart Passive Income brand is actually just teaching what you've learned from the things that are more focused, like niche businesses over the years.
Yeah. They're just case studies that I'm sharing versus just regurgitation of stuff that other people have done. That's what I think put Smart Passive Income on the map, was I had this successful online business and I was just sharing how that was going. And I wasn't just sharing how well it was going. I was also sharing the mistakes I was making. Like when in 2009, I got a kind letter from the United States Green Building Council asking me to take the whole website down and it was a cease and desist letter. And I freaked out and I didn't know what I was doing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm not cut out for this. I was like already looking at other architecture jobs that were coming back on the market around this time. But I was using a trademark in the domain name. It was inthelead.com. I thought that was clever, LEED, but lead was a trademark. And you're not supposed to use a trademark in a domain name. So I learned that lesson, was able to do a redirect to what is now greenexamacademy.com. And that website still exists. I don't update it with my own stuff. I just link to, and I'm an affiliate to other companies' products who are in that space still and who are up to date with all that. And I still get $1,500 to $2,000 a month from that website now 16 years later for doing nothing. It's just there.
It's wild.
So, yeah.
I love that. It's going to be the perfect place to kind of close out the first half of our conversation. And when we come back, maybe we'll start with kind of that principle that you were talking about, that is this just-in-time learning style of being that now I think you've really solidified and is going to be the subject of a new book you've got coming out. But I want to spend the second half of our chat talking about principles for leading and building businesses that I think I've learned from you and examples I've seen from you of those, and how those have played out in your business as a way of kind of sharing ways that others can build businesses or build careers themselves. So that's what people can look forward to when we come back.
Let's do it.
All right, Pat, we're back. I want to talk about the principles that I've learned from you, or some of them, I think. And we'll start with the one we left off on, which is this kind of idea of learning as you need the information versus what I see from a lot of people, which is like information hoarding. Learning just in case is like the alternative to just in time. And I have this tendency, because I really love to go super deep on things, and I've had to really combat it over time. This podcast is a great tool for this, because I have one a week, and there's one guest, and there's a deadline, and there's someone showing up on my Riverside channel. And so I have to go meet that deadline and do all my research just in time. So it's a great example of what you're talking about. But what was the journey that you went through to like arrive at the idea and trust the idea that when you need to learn something, you will have all of the tools and the ability and the resources to go learn that thing, versus prepping just in case every time?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of understanding and being truthful about the fact that you do have access to all those resources. This is why relationships are key. The more relationships you have, the more resources you have. Number one, whether it's a person who can directly help you or a person who can help direct you to a person who can help you. But then also trusting yourself and your skills of findability. Everything is figure outable, right? As Marie Forleo would say. And just believing that. And there have been no times in my past that I can think of where I haven't been able to find an answer to something or find a resource for something to help me on my way. So there's literally no point in me wasting time on the thing that may be difficult 20 steps from now. I'm going to figure out what I need to do now, because if I figure out what I do now, I might not even need to think about that thing 20 steps from now. I might go a completely different direction because the thing I'm learning now is pointing me over here instead of over there. So now that obstacle is not even an obstacle anymore. It's not even in the same world. You learn so much more from doing. And I think this is hard as a perfectionist. I was very much that. I'm very much somebody who, when I would come home from school with a 95% on my math test, I would get called out for the 5% I missed. That's how I grew up. And then I would spend hours with my dad, him tutoring me on the 5% I missed. It was dreadful. And this is exactly why I work so hard to get 100% on literally everything. And when you're conditioned to get 100% on literally everything as an entrepreneur, that's going to be very difficult.
Doesn't work that way.
So did you have
were mistakes crippling to you for a period of time then? Was it like really hard did you develop that as an inner voice, basically, that every time you made some little mistake, you were self-criticizing and like trying to fix it and avoid it in the future?
Yeah, always. Always. I was always trying to avoid the mistake, because I knew that if I came to a mistake, it would turn into a dreadful moment of trying to figure out.
This has been a huge area of learning for me, and I want to hear how you overcame it, because it came out the most in sports for me. So I had a similar thing. My mom is like perfectionist, driven, ambitious. I love her to death. She's going to come on the show and we're going to have a really awesome conversation. But she would do the same thing. It's like I'd get done with a baseball game and we could have won by 10 runs. I like pitched 4 innings, played shortstop the rest, 2 out of 4 at the plate or whatever. And it'd be like, so what about that one error?
Yes.
And I don't think she meant it that way, but it was like we'd do a performance review after every game. And so I developed this mindset of like, well, every mistake is a blemish. No matter how the results turned out. It was, if I made a mistake, I got to be better. And that developed into a fear of that. I developed a fear of, well, I don't want to get criticized, so I don't want to make the errors. And that actually led me to perform worse. Like I was inherently great at the thing already because I spent so much time on it. But then if I got a ground ball hit to me, I was scared of making an error because I didn't want to get criticized, and I would make more errors because of it. And this played out in a lot of areas of my life where, the sports version of it, just because everyone can relate to it on some level, is like, I didn't want to take the last shot, even if statistically, if you looked at my practice, like I should take the last basketball shot. I didn't want it because I didn't want to get criticized after the fact. And so a huge area of learning for me has been, well, how do I develop the mindset of wanting the ball in those situations, or wanting to be in the position where, like, now every dollar that I'm responsible for in our family's financials, I have to go get. And there's a difference there that we have to overcome. So what was your process to get there?
What was it, Michael, who said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but you miss out on the opportunity to learn for every shot you don't take either. And so when I think about my journey through that mindset and busting through that brick wall that I was coming across, that was beautifully laid down by my father for me. I love my dad too, by the way. It has just come with repetition. Repetition, keep going, knowing that every time I fail, I can get better the next time. It would be a disservice to myself. And then if it happens to involve other people, if my performance involves other people, it would be a disservice to them if I did not try to improve. And the quickest and fastest way to improve is to fall and fail faster. When I think logically about that, I put my feelings away. I put that worry and that conditioning away of how hard it's going to be to make up for that in exchange for the benefit of learning my way through it and getting better and having a better result later. I want the result faster. So give me 20 errors so I can figure out how I can finally not let those errors happen ever again, versus, okay, they happen sparingly and then I don't get enough repetition in to then learn my way out of it anymore. And now I'm just stuck with this, right? That, and also getting help. I mean, I had help with the tutoring, but it was not in the way that I would have preferred to receive it. But even going back to sports, like with my golf game, for a while, my golf game was pretty terrible. And at some point, you're going to have to get some help, because if you have a bad swing, I mean, you could read all the magazines you want and just mess your swing up even more.
It's not going to magically fix itself.
No. So let me find somebody who knows what the hell they're doing to show me what I'm doing wrong, be open to that, and give it a real chance. And so I would hire a swing coach and I would get better and I would listen. And sometimes they would say things that I already knew, but then could tweak things just a little bit and see things that I couldn't. And so that kind of learning, that's why mentorship is key, and finding somebody who's been there already and investing in that, because that's going to be, you're buying your time back by learning more quickly from somebody who knows what the heck they're doing and who has training on how to coach and teach you as well, ideally. And so that's how I learn everything now. When I was going back to the Fortnite thing with my kids, I didn't tell my kids this, but I hired a Fortnite coach on Fiverr to teach me how to play Fortnite better. And I got really good.
I did not know that people earned a living being Fortnite coaches.
I don't know if they earn a living.
They make some pocket change though. It's I could Uber, I could Fortnite coach. So
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gigs in this gig economy, I guess. But yeah, that's why waste my time on a computer just lollygagging when I could have an expert tell me what the heck to do, and it's going to sit better and I'm going to remember it more. And it's just a 13-year-old kid just coaching me. It's awesome.
That is amazing.
Triathlon. I hired Jeff McMahon, who's still continued to work with me now a decade later, but I hired him for coaching me through a triathlon. Never run one before. And he was able to coach me in 6 months. I was able to complete my first sprint triathlon, which was a lifelong goal of mine. If I had attempted to do that myself, not only would I have done very poorly, but I could have also injured myself or worse. So it's worth it to me to invest in a coach or somebody who knows what they're doing and how to teach me, the right way. And then that, combined with the idea of failing is learning, the only true failure is giving up, or not at least giving something a chance to succeed, then you're good.
Yeah, I love that. This is where, so I take two big things away from that. The first one is the art of asking for help. And one of the things that's true about getting help is that as you acquire assets, they can be accelerators. If you invest the money you're making into the kind of help that will most help you go faster to what you want, it is such a shortcut compared to trying to do it all on your own. Like to your point, the golf swing, the triathlon, in my case, training as a coach. It's like, I didn't wait to become a coach until I had trained enough, quote unquote. I am a coach. I had been a coach for a long time, and I'm committed to consistently trying to become more and more world-class at what I do. And so I seek out the best training I can go get on that, because I know I don't know what I don't know. I don't know the things that I could be better at. But when I record a coaching session and I submit it to an expert level coach and they help me break it down the way you do a golf swing, I get better. I see, oh, look at that. I didn't give the client time to actually form their own opinion there. I jumped in and saved them. Well, that's kind of a silly habit. I shouldn't do that. That takes away something from them. What a freaking gift that is. But if I'm stuck in the mindset of every error is a thing to be ashamed of, and I go into my shame spiral, as Brene Brown calls it, I'm done. I'm cooked. It's over. And so the second thing I take away from this is, so the first is learning to accept the gift of help and learning to admit that we all need it. It's not a weakness. It's not a reflection of something wrong with you. It's just we all need help, and going and getting it and accepting that gift. And the second one is, I would call it like a posture of being on your heels versus being on your toes. And the heels thing is like, oh God, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. You know, like, let me lean back and not get too involved in this, so that it's the hiding thing, like you said, you learned in high school. And being on your toes is like, I want every ground ball to come to me. I want every person to hit the ball to me so that I can make the play, or whatever the version of that is, right? Like I want coaching sessions every week so I can get better and better and better. I want the feedback. And that postural change alone, from like being on your heels versus being on your toes and whatever you're doing, is such a huge shift that if you can make it to where you're like the aggressor, not in a mean way, but like an aggressor towards achieving the things you're setting out to achieve, not to go all woo woo and like, you know, motivational speaker on people, but I just think it makes a massive shift and difference in your life.
Yeah. Like greatness is not going to happen by you waiting around. Like you have to go and get it.
I think we've heard that repeatedly from people who have come on this show.
Really?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of layers to that, like what's your motivation, and, you know, what is the call to urgency and all this kind of stuff. But the moment you start realizing that, okay, that's what you could control, you taking those repetitions, like we talked about earlier about content creation, and not having your value be in the outcome of that, but rather you making the decision to do the thing, well, then you've won, because you're going to learn from that. You're going to improve just naturally. It just automatically will happen. And then you combine that with master level coaching, somebody who can fast forward and accelerate that process for you. Then, I mean, nothing's stopping you then there except yourself.
Applying that to your own kind of growth over time, what do you think, if you remove the like humble layer that I know is part of the Pat brand, what do you think you've become world-class at over time?
I've become world-class at storytelling. That is a purposeful skill that I'm continuing to try to improve. I feel and believe truly that that will be the most valuable skill that exists in the world eventually, if not already. With AI and information just so plentiful, it's how you wrap that information. It's how you connect on an emotional level with somebody. If you can make a person, I think Ryan Dice said this, if you can make a person laugh, cry, get angry,
feel something.
When you move people, people will move with you. When you move people, people will move with you. I've become world-class at understanding how to connect people together in a large-scale format now, not just online, but through events and live events like the Pokémon event, and understanding and empathizing with people and their experiences at those places. I also feel like I've gotten world-class at content creation, and I can kind of mold that content creation to whatever format requires, especially now on short form. I actually used to be pretty against doing short form content because I've experimented with it like I always do. I try things out for a little bit just to see, and it just didn't work for me. But it's because I didn't do a few things. So rewinding a little bit, I have a YouTube channel about Pokemon. It's called Deep Pocket Monster.
Deep Pocket Monster, one of my favorites.
Thank you. We just hit about 1 million subscribers, in fact, in less than 4 years, which is absolutely wild. And we had attempted shorts on that channel before, but we found that it was attracting the wrong kind of people who didn't really care about these long form challenges we were doing. They were, in fact, attracting people who were like, why are these adults playing with kids things? What? Like, look at this guy playing with cardboard with with cartoons on it, right? Those were the kind of people that we were attracting. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do shorts on the main channel. But a good friend of mine, Alex Hodges, started going daily with his shorts and just sharing little, like in a more episodic series, like packs that he was opening. He was like, Pat, I think you'd be really good at this and have a lot more to add. Like, you should try it out and put your own flavor on it. And so I did. And I pulled inspiration from a couple TikTok channels that I do follow and did follow. And all of them had a series, meaning it was episodic. Like, here's day 1 of feeding my seagull pet. Here's day 2, here's day 3. You get to know the seagull and you get to know what it likes and to know its behavior. Here's day 1 of placing a blackjack bet for the number, like $1 for every follower I have, right? I don't know if you saw that guy.
Yes, that guy is
Tim Nackey. Yeah, 1010.
Lord. Just beware if you go look him up. He is a lot.
Oh, part of the fun of him is his reactions to things and the words that come out of his mouth. But it was like you wanted to see what happened tomorrow. For the videos I was initially creating on shorts, it was like there was no reason to subscribe. And I've taught this, I just wasn't practicing it. People subscribe because of what's coming, not because of a thank you. We think that as creators, if people like our video, they're going to subscribe. No, that's what a like and a heart is for. If people subscribe, it's because they know that more of this is coming and they want it. And so creating a series was a game changer. There's also another one now. I don't know if you know this guy, but he's been shooting a golf ball over his house. And he has a glass house, dude. So it's like, already you're like, what the heck is this guy doing? But he's like a pro golfer.
Is this Bryson DeChambeau?
Yeah, that's him.
Okay.
So he's shooting a golf ball over his house to try to get a hole-in-one in his little green in his backyard. And he's like, it's day 7, so I got 7 chances. It's day 8, so I got 8 chances. It's taking the world by storm right now because you want to see this thing and whether he's going to do it, right? There's a series. You know why you're subscribing. So I adopted that to the Pokemon space. I created a secret YouTube channel called Short Pocket Monster. I did not link to it. I did not mention it. I just wanted to see if the algorithm would pick it up and send it to the right people. And I started posting daily, started opening these packs and learning. And it was kind of scrappy a little bit. And then I started to go, oh, that's fun. I'm going to create this little jingle. And I got a jingle from Music Radio Creative. And it goes, should I open it or should I keep it sealed? And that starts every episode. And I've gotten to the rhythm now where now it just takes 15 minutes to edit these videos daily. And sometimes, and most of the time I batch them. So I just have to do like a week's worth on the weekend or something. After 20 days, nothing was really happening. I was getting a few hundred views on these, which was kind of cool, getting a few comments here and there. Day 21, boom. I was going to commit to this for 60 days. Day 21, I saw my first day with 100,000 views.
And you did nothing different on that day?
Nothing different. Literally nothing different. I just gave it time. And I gave myself the gratification of making the success the fact that I kept it up daily. The consistency was what was the win, not the result of being consistent. But being consistent was the win. And all along the way, I'm learning. What once took me 1 hour is now taking me 15 minutes. So every time you iterate on something, you get better at it. Atomic Habits style, right? And then now, fast forward to literally yesterday. I'll tell you my stats from yesterday. By the way, I also take that same video on YouTube and put it on TikTok and also put it on Instagram. So on YouTube, yesterday, I saw 4.6 million views from just yesterday. On TikTok, I saw 7 million views just yesterday. And on Instagram, I saw 3.5 million views.
How many days in are you now?
I'm 121 days in because I'm on episode 121 today. So just 4 months into it. I now have a brand new YouTube channel that has 580,000 subscribers. My TikTok went from 11,000 to now 650,000 subscribers. And my Instagram went from 22,000 to now 500,000 followers. And revenue on just the Shorts channel alone, last 28 days, $14,682 estimated revenue from just the last 28 days on the Shorts channel.
Just from AdSense?
Just from AdSense. And on TikTok, if the videos are over 60 seconds on TikTok, you can unlock monetization there. And I'm getting about $5,000 to $6,000 per month there now. And what's funny is these videos on YouTube were under 60 seconds. So what I would do is I have a YouTube version that's 59 seconds. And then I have a TikTok version where one moment is just slowed down by like half, 200 by like 50%. to extend over a minute for the TikTok version. And I upload that natively there. And what is really interesting is it's starting to get out there in the world. I saw a video this morning of a guy opening Pop-Tarts using my jingle. And he's got gloves and he's opening Pop-Tarts. He's like, should I open it or should I keep it sealed? And then the comments, I read it this morning, was like, Deep Pocket Monsters have been quiet since this came out. The Detroit Lions follow me now. They open a pack of Pokemon before every game. And I left one comment when they got a bad pull. And I was like, oh no, you should have kept it sealed, which I have different endings for the different result. And it has like that one comment are like, oh my gosh, like I watch you every day. Like I can't, like you've been a part of my life now. It just, the reason shorts didn't work before was because shorts, I mean, think about it, it's short. It's only 60 seconds. How can you possibly build a relationship with somebody in that small period of time? That's why my long channels, which have like 30 to 1 hour long videos, I'm building a deep relationship and a very loyal audience there. It wasn't working before because every video was kind of on its own. But now that I have a series that a person is watching before they go to bed or when they have a bad day at work and they're like, this is the only thing that makes me feel better every day. Now it's 60 seconds times 120. And I'm with them every day and I'm inserted into their lives just like I was in the long form, but in a different format. So to go back to your original question, I feel like I'm world class now at figuring out, no matter the platform, how to build a relationship with an audience. So audience building in the format that they prefer. Because for a while, and I know a lot of creators struggle with this, it's like, okay, I prefer this platform, so this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to do it in a way that makes me feel comfortable. You're doing it for your audience, not for you. And you got to figure out how those mechanisms and those algorithms work. And it's just been such a fun ride. The shorts channel and the long channel. I mean, we're getting invited by cities now to film card hunting videos by the board of tourisms of different cities now. There's even talks of potentially having like a studio built and all this other stuff. It's kind of wild, but it's interesting because when I look back, I'm like, oh, a lot of the skills I learned, people see the channel who don't know my SPI history are like, oh my gosh, this was an overnight success. And I'm like, absolutely not.
No. Yeah.
It's taken me 16 years to get here. I just created this channel in year 15 and you're not seeing all the rest of it. And all the rest of it includes content creation, understanding how community and people work, understanding how to use these particular platforms and write great titles or create the thumbnails that actually get clicked on. All this stuff that's taken years to learn are coming out in now this new space that hasn't ever seen anything like it before, which has been so fun. And I think the coolest thing is this Pokemon community that everybody's really cool. And I mean, we're all nerds. We were all the kids bullied and in band back in the day. And now we have like Pokemon and more allowance to spend today. So yeah, those skills have carried over, right? Like even like public speaking. I've publicly spoken at my live event for Pokemon and people are like, this guy is like world class, but he's talking about Pokemon. But I know how to hold an audience's attention. I know how to tell story. It's just in a different space now. And so that's why I feel like even if I were to lose everything today, I'll be fine. Because I know and I'm confident in the skills that I have to figure it out. And it all stems to what does the audience want more of? And what is it that they ultimately want? And then combining that with the skills that I've learned on top of that.
Yeah, that's really good. It's, we're talking about Pokemon, and so people could get lost in that. But what they miss is all of the deep background that's gone into making it possible for this to happen.
It's not even about Pokemon. It's not even about Pokemon.
Right. It's an example of the principles that you've learned over time and this like relentless pursuit of what I refer to as excellence, becoming world-class at things and then finding new outlets and applications for them. It almost becomes like this fun game where every new outlet becomes a new test of can you adapt to the way things are changing and apply all the skills you've built to the new, industry, if you want to call it, or like new vertical you're entering and in the new media environment as it shifted since the last time you did it. And can you win because of the skills you've built?
So it's not about Pokemon because it's about the story and the human stories that are related to that, right? Because so my long form channel, a lot of the videos I do are challenges I try to complete like a set within a certain time period. And there are so many comments that say, I don't even care about Pokemon. I don't even know what a Pokemon is, but I can't stop watching this guy's videos. And it's because I've mastered that storytelling. And I haven't mastered it. We're continuing to try to master it. We're learning it as we go. There's a book that I would highly recommend for anybody who wants to go deeper into storytelling called Save the Cat. Have you read that book
No,
yet?
I haven't.
It's actually a script writing book. And it's about this idea, like it's just one tidbit in a much larger compendium of storytelling tips and tactics and strategies. But Save the Cat, that one in particular is like, if you ever watch a story or a movie and the main character in the beginning, the protagonists save a cat or the equivalent of that, you as the audience are now rooting for that person because they've done something that is, wholesome and good. So you want to root for them. So every good story has a save the cat moment somewhere for a protagonist, and not every story, but that's what we do. So there are moments in the Pokemon journey, for example, where there'll be a kid who just, doesn't have a good card to trade me for this card that he wants. And, on paper, this would be a dumb deal for me, but I'm going to make that trade anyway and make this kid's day. We capture his smile and his family's like, thank you so much. He had a really rough school day today or whatever. And it's like, I just saved the cat. And now you're rooting for me even more to complete this challenge and hopefully not fail.
And then you have character development arcs as well, because you'll get like a same kid who's back and he's bigger and he's a wise guy who knows how to get you for your best cards. And you're like, oh, okay, no.
Yes,
We've been here before.
Literally. There was a kid who, his name was Duke. He was in one of our series that we did. And I met him at a card shop and he found this loophole. He didn't know it at the time. I didn't even know it at the time because we were filming everything. But in the post-editing process, after filming, I was like, this kid is awesome. He keeps coming back with these common cards that I need for my challenge. And he keeps asking for the expensive ones in the bottom. He did like 3 times. So we leaned into it. We were like, this kid broke the system. He's a hacker. He's probably hacking things at home. And he's just like so nonchalant. Like we played into that. And then he came back a year later. I saw him in a video and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Duke. If you don't remember, this happened. So I brought that back. And then we're back at present day. And he was trying to do it again. And then I go, I don't know how he's going to respond to this because he's a professional hacker, remember? And then I go, sorry, I think this isn't a fair trade. And he goes, okay. And then I go, wait, that's all I had to do? Why didn't I know that last time? And it's just like these things. Also, we have inanimate characters. So we put googly eyes on a kitchen clock and we just named it Steve because we couldn't think of a better name. Steve has now become one of the audience's favorite characters, and they ask for Steve. In fact, I went to my 1 million subscriber giveaway recently. We did the live stream out of a card shop here locally, and every hour I would get people who are like, where's Steve? He should be here celebrating with you, as if he's a real person. He's literally just, I could even, hold up.
It's a clock. It's like Wilson from...
Yeah, oh, exactly. So here's Steve. We put teeth on him for Halloween because we filmed the Halloween video. But like he's become my sort of arch nemesis on the channel in a way. And it's just like, that sounds so stupid. But it holds the attention because it's storytelling, right? Really diving. I truly believe that's going to be a skill that every creator needs to understand because no longer can we just create information.
How to, yeah.
It's just going to like, people are even like, don't even care about Alex Hormozzi's videos as much anymore because it's just the same old stuff.
Yeah, and ChatGPT can give it to you in 6 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, Alex, by the way, he'll be fine.
Yeah, he will be fine. But it's a good point though, that like the more efficient that machines get at delivering how-to information or just-in-time learning, the more the human elements of emotion, story, journeys, community, connection, the more that becomes important. And so, I think this is where people like you and me will be at an advantage where we have always been community driven. And that skill set now becomes more and more useful. And I'm thinking a lot about this because sometimes for some reason I keep my like community building and my business building separate, but I'm thinking a lot about how to bring those things together because it's such a strong skill set of mine that I'm not taking enough advantage of. And so how can I do more of that with this show, for example, or with my coaching?
Yeah. Like you're bringing fly fishermen together. I mean,
right. Exactly. It's like why I texted my clients recently, and if you haven't heard from me, you will soon. And I just said, hey, would you like a chat group with all my other clients? Because you're all at the same business stage. Like you don't have to, but if you'd like to, I can just do it for free. And now that's another reason that people would want to work with me is now they know a bunch of other seven-figure creators who it would be hard to connect with otherwise because they're not in their space. And just thinking in those terms.
We've changed our business model at SPI, which was very course driven, starting in 2017, to now just community specific. I mean, we call it community powered courses, and it's a membership SPI community. That is our product. That is our model now. It's not courses. Courses are in there, and we go through cohorts of people through them for people who are more at the beginner stage, and it's great. The feedback has never been this good, as well as the just organization of everything and people's pathways and journeys through that information. Because it's, again, not about the information. It's about being with other people on the same path as you, just like I was with those people in the Internet Business Mastery days. And I was sad to see Internet Business Mastery sort of disband. Jeremy and Jason kind of went their separate ways at some point. And then all of us in the community were like, how are we going to find each other again? And then some of us formed our own mastermind group, and I'm still a part of one of those. And it's all about people, I mean, we're even seeing a lot of previously well-known storytellers struggle a bit, like Pixar and Disney a bit, because of various reasons. But if you can master storytelling, you can capture and hold attention, and you can move people to something better from there.
So the Pokemon thing is the latest in a long string of kind of these niche things that you've done. You started with the lead certification exam training. You went into security guard training for a while, and like requirements for them to get their like whatever test or certification. You did a food truck thing for a while. You got the Pokemon one. Did I miss any?
SwitchPod.
Oh, SwitchPod, the niche like YouTuber tool. I got actually my backlight on it. The blue backlight back there is sitting on a SwitchPod. And what I've learned from you on this is a lot of what we just talked about. So I don't want to go further into it because we've covered it in the context of the Pokemon, but you've done it repeatedly. And this is the fuel for what you teach at SPI, Smart Passive Income. It's not like theoretically, here's what you should do. It's, hey, on day 20, nothing was happening. On day 21 of doing shorts, everything changed because I just did it. Yeah. And there's such a big difference between those two things.
Right. I mean, there are creators who are doing a very good job of curating content like that they're world class at. And there are people like Patty Galloway, for example, who are teaching people how to do YouTube, but he's largely using other people's channels and his clients' channels as examples, but they're real life examples. So that's like great. I prefer to use my own examples and examples from my own students as well. Yeah. But I don't know anything better than my own stuff, and I can teach better from my own stuff. So if you don't have your own stuff to share, it's going to be that much more difficult. So go make your own stuff happen, right? What was it, Benjamin Franklin, who said, like, if you don't have a good story to tell, go and live a good story first, or something like that. I don't know. I'm butchering
it's not going to come into focus. But anyways, I held it up for the YouTube watchers. It sits on my desk every day. Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing.
No shot that was there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
How's that? Pretty good, huh? I've got a little paperweight on my desk. It's right on my computer every day. God, people are going to find out what a nerd I am over time. I always do the same two closing questions, but I want to ask you one more about a principle I've seen from you, and I've really been inspired by it because it's given me the permission to lean harder into it over time. And you talk constantly about being of service and making an impact on others. And I don't remember what interview this was from, but you said this quote that I wrote down, which was, you're going to change people's lives, and that's when your life changes too. And it just made me curious, like, where this orientation towards service came from for you, and why, even in the face of like naivete and optimism and all of these things being looked down upon in many cases, that like you've just leaned into it harder and harder and harder over time, this being of service thing.
I think I keep getting that positive feedback. It's just a loop. The more I lean into others, the more people lean into me, and the more I lean back into them, and the more I've unplugged from the matrix ever since I got laid off and found that this is how it works. And it would be an even more beautiful world if everybody felt this way. I truly believe that. And it goes along the same lines as what Zig Ziglar once said, which is, you can have anything in life that you want so long as you help other people get what they want. And I truly believe that. And there is a world where everybody can win, in my opinion. There is. We're not at a poker table where, Barrett, if you're winning, that means I'm losing. No. However, that's how we often live our lives. And if we see somebody else win, we often feel like, well, why not me? Or I'm not good enough, or hey, they're taking something from me. But why not? Hey, that proves that they can do it and I can do it too. And maybe they can help me. I think I got a lot of this from my mom. She was very service oriented, maybe to a fault. We'll be at a family party or something, or somebody else's party, and she's like, can I do the dishes? Like, I just want to help out. And I'm like, no, don't do that. It's just continued to prove itself to be true. And I could keep continuing to lead by example with that for my kids. It's how I want my kids to understand the world, the way the world works. My son probably has rolled his eyes way too many times from me saying things like this before. And, one day he's going to be older and just go, oh, yeah, dad was right. I feel like a lot of what drives me is what my kids think about in the future, about how, because April and I, again, we both love our parents, but we do talk about how our childhood was and how not great certain aspects of it were. And so we know our kids are going to, my son and my daughter are going to go to a cafe to catch up one day after they both leave for college or whatever. And they're going to be like, remember when mom and dad did this or did this? Like, I'd rather have them say, oh, I hate it when he would always sing out of tune trying to harmonize, versus I hate how he didn't give me a chance to be myself. So whether I'm around during that time or not, that's what I'm planning for.
It's beautiful. Leads me to the first of my last two questions, which is, what is the most beautiful version of the future that you're working to make true?
More people who can spend more time with their kids, or go on vacations, or just have more freedom in their time, in their life, because of the work that they are proud of doing. I'm so grateful to have gotten laid off. And I was laid off from my dream job, like my dream job, and I got let go, and I'm grateful for that. I know most people are not in their dream job situation. So I would only hope that more people can experience this level of freedom that I've accidentally / intentionally landed on. And I say that because if I hadn't gotten laid off, I probably wouldn't be where I am today, for sure. I'd try to become the world's best architect, but I wouldn't have this kind of freedom. I wouldn't have this kind of family. I wouldn't have this kind of fun, to be honest. And that word fun, I think, is an important part of it too. I always try to find the fun in everything. Ali Abdaal wrote a book on a similar level of just like making things fun, even if they're not normally, like finding the fun within it to do productive, fulfilling work. I'm having a freaking blast, dude. Like every day I'm so grateful that I can play with cardboard with cartoons on it. It's awesome.
Last question is, as you do that work, so you work to make that future true, where people have more freedom, more time to spend with family, who are you becoming in the process? So you enter your 42nd birthday and you've been at it for 16 years.
I don't know. I feel like I know I'm not perfect, and I know there's a lot of things I can improve on. So really who I'm becoming is just the best version of me. And I'm always trying to work toward that, whatever that might be. I don't know what things are going to be like in a year or 5 years from now, but I just want to be the healthiest, happiest example for people. I want to continue to be an inspiration. I want to continue to create content, but I also want to do it the right way. I could make a lot more money, and I could have a much bigger audience, but I could also drive myself to the ground. So continuing to find that happy sort of stabilization and happy kind of compromise in my life with the work and then my health and my family, and I just want to show that it could be done the right way. I want people to, when I pass, to go, damn, he lived like a good life. And I'm inspired by that. It reminds me of, I had gotten a video from a great friend of mine, Dan Miller. And this video was a private video that he had sent to a few people, but I guarantee he'd be okay with me sharing this. Basically, it was him at his farmstead, happy as all hell, just so grateful, despite the fact that he had gotten diagnosed with, I believe it was pancreatic cancer, and he only had just a couple weeks to live, if that. And with that really terrible news, I've always looked up to Dan as a mentor and as a friend, and he was always supportive of SPI and myself and my brand and my family. And to see him in his final days so fulfilled and say things like, there's nothing that I would change about where I ended up and what I've done. I've done everything I've wanted to do. My life is full, and I'm so happy that you were a part of it. Like, I want to be able to make that same video for people, and have me thinking, it's like, what's the delta between where I am now and that moment? And I want to be around as long as I can, but honestly, I don't think I'm that far from that.
Hmm. Beautiful place to end it. Love you, Pat Flynn. Thanks for being here, my friend.
You too, man. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Good Work. My name is Barrett Brooks. I'm your host, and this show is produced by my friends over at Podcast Royale. There's no one better in the business if you have a podcast or a friend who has a podcast and is looking for a producer, so make sure to look them up. You can subscribe to get every future episode of the show right in your feed, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. So make sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen or tune in. My guest today was Pat Flynn. Pat's the founder of Smart Passive Income, which you can find at smartpassiveincome.com. He's the creator of Deep Pocket Monster, which you can find at youtube.com/deeppocketmonster. If you're interested in Pokémon or just seeing how he's built that channel into a massively popular success. And of course, you can follow Pat literally anywhere online, whatever social media platform you're on, you can find Pat Flynn. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love you to copy the link wherever you listen or tune in, drop it in a text message, and send it to just one friend you think would enjoy this episode or benefit from it in some way. The best way for this show to spread is for you to share it with people who share your interests and who will similarly appreciate the nuance, depth, and care that go into these conversations. So thank you so much for doing that. And if you have questions about the show, leave a comment on YouTube, drop a question into the Spotify feed, or drop me an email at bb@barrettbrooks.com. I love hearing from you. I check all the comments, all the questions, and I always try to answer all of them. So stay in touch and let me know what you think. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for spending 2 hours with me. As always, grateful for it. I'm grateful for you. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next Tuesday.